Today on Hot Topics, we are going to talk about living kidney donation and how kidney patients who need a transplant get the word out to family, friends, people in their circle to let them know that they need a kidney.
And again, they said it's up to you whether you tell the recipient or not. You don't have to. But I chose because it was Christmas time at that time of year, and I phoned up Joe and Cheryl and I said, Merry Christmas, here's your Christmas present, you got my kidney.
I don't know how you found out, Todd, from Tanya, if you want to share.
So I actually, 3 months before my transplant, I had a very serious health incident. I had some seizures and ended up in a coma for 5 days. And on day 4 of that coma, Tanya had been scheduled for an appointment with BC Transplant. And every time she went for an appointment, I would pick up the phone, leave her a message and say, I'm hoping for the best, I hope it goes well today. And so that morning, she saw a voice message from my phone. And she didn't know until after her appointment, where she had been told it's all good to go, the transplant's a go. Yeah. She was leaving that appointment, picked up the voicemail, and it was my mom saying, Tanya, something's happened to Todd. And she went to VGH, she went from VGH to Royal Columbian, and at Royal Columbian, I was in ICU, and she came into my room with my mom and her, and Tanya said, holding my hand and still in coma at this point, she said, Todd, the transplant's a go. And my mom and Tanya tell me that I physically moved one of my legs over the railing of the bed because I was ready to go have this transplant.
You were ready to roll.
I was ready to roll. I was ready to have this transplant.
Wow.
And she said at that time, the other thing that happened when they told me, still in the coma, was she said there was a single tear that came down my eye. So as much as I was in a coma, I was very much aware of what had been said and what I had been told. And then fortunately 3 months later, the transplant went ahead.
Now, Sheila, you were saying it's interesting because you gave the call. You called on Christmas Eve.
Right.
And then it was several years later, though, that the transplant actually took place. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it was, Joe is amazing and took such good care of himself physically and through diet that his kidneys went on for another almost 4 years after we had gone through that initial testing. So we had a bit of a sabbatical there where we waited. And then finally when his kidneys did fail, then I got the call about a month ahead of time and said, it looks like it's going to be soon.
Sheila, you've brought in a beautiful box here. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what this is?
Well, it was the day before we went in to have the transplant. Joe and Cheryl gave me this box, and it's a memory box, and in it contains all kinds of things that are circulate around the kidney transplant. And they had the inscription on the front of the box that says the memory box cost $50. The hospital PJs that they included for me cost $30, and they said Sheila's kidney is priceless. And it marks the day that we had the transplant. So that was very, very special. And then Joe brought this to the hospital after, or on the day of the transplant. And this was a trophy he had inscribed for me. And this was extremely special because Joe was a real quiet guy who couldn't even talk about his kidney need for a kidney or anything else. And so for him to do something so public and to present this to me was really touched me.
Todd, you were also mentioning that your partner is, he's a musician and he is working on something pretty special for your donor as well.
Yeah, and Kevin, as I said, that night that we got engaged, his thank you to Tanya was a phone call, but he's a musician, so he's thinking and pondering a song for her. And I think as much as Kevin's working on this song, and it will be beautiful, I'm sure, the ultimate gift back to her is to live a life that's worthy of that gift.
For sure.
Thank you both so much for joining us here today.
It's
wonderful to have you both in studio. And for anyone wanting more information on how to be a living donor or how to find a living donor, you can go to kidney.bc.ca or transplant.bc.ca.